the vice president repeatedly. This will certainly be a relief to a lot of the Biden supporters who are going into this debate fairly nervous. The former vice president clearly showed up. Jake, a lot to analyze and discuss.
Well, that was a hot mess inside a dumpster fire, inside a train wreck. That was the worst debate I have ever seen. In fact, it wasn't even a debate. It was a disgrace. And it's primarily because of President Trump, who spent the entire time interrupting, not abiding by the rules that he agreed to, lying, maliciously attacking the son of the vice president. When asked to condemn white supremacists, he brought up the name of a neo-fascist far-right group and said, stand back and stand by. We'll talk about who won the debate, who lost the debate, but I can tell you one thing for sure. The American people lost tonight, because that was horrific.
You just took the words out of my mouth. You used some high-minded language. I'm just going to say it like it is. That was a shit show. And, you know, we're on cable. We can say that. Apologies for being maybe a little bit crude, but that is really the phrase that I'm getting, you know, from people on both sides of the aisle on text, and it's the only phrase that I can think of to really describe it. And I couldn't agree with you more, Jake. The people who have been hurt the most by that are the people who are genuinely looking to see what each candidate stands for and who they should vote for. There are still people out there who haven't made up their mind either on which candidate to vote for or whether to vote. And I'm not sure that, particularly on the latter point, that performance and that the theater there, the reality TV show, the bad reality TV show, is going to help them in the least.
Yeah, I mean, it was a complete disaster on all fronts. And I think if you came into this thinking that, you know, two men in their 70s who want to be the leader of the free world for the next 4 years could have a you know, reasonable exchange of ideas, you came away from this debate thinking that's not possible, because you could hardly even hear them at certain points. There was so much crosstalk one over the other. But Jake, as you pointed out, we should be really, this is not a both sides type of situation. There was one party on that stage interrupting, yelling over the moderator. And from the very beginning, I think what was so striking to watch was that usually these debates build and they build and they build to the end. We started at a 12 on a scale from 1 to 10. The president was really, you know, I think in a very agitated state very early on in the debate, and the tone was set from that.
And I've heard already from people who very much support the president, want him to do well, as this is going on, that he was way too hot. They knew that he was going to be aggressive. They knew, as we talked about beforehand, that he was going to try to be on offense as much as possible. But this took it too far, even for Donald Trump.
And think about it if you're an undecided voter, right?
Yeah.
And you don't like the president's style, but you like some of his policies, okay? And you come in tonight, and the president, look, I don't know if Joe Biden won the debate per se. He had some nice moments, but I thought he was kind of flat. But that's almost irrelevant, because the way the president behaved, again, the Anti-Defamation League is already out there asking the president to clarify why he didn't condemn white supremacists and why he told this far-right neo-fascist group to stand back and stand by. The way that the president behaved on the debate stage is the way that the president has behaved in American politics. Yes, he's dominant, and if you like that, great. But he was rude. He didn't abide by any standards of decorum or decency. It was really, frankly, embarrassing. And just to clarify something, when I said it was almost entirely Trump, I wasn't talking about Joe Biden as the part that I was unsure about. I was talking about the moderator who did not have control of the debate stage for much of the evening, who didn't remind the president that he was violating the rules till 1 hour and 13 minutes into the debate.
Look, the whole thing was disgraceful. The whole thing was disgraceful. And when you talk about the fact that, you know, that the president took it to a new low, there was one part in particular, it's hard to pick out because there were a lot of lows, that was really unbelievable, which is when Joe Biden was talking about his son who died, who he was incredibly really close to, but talking about him in the context of being a war hero, and somebody who was in the military. And what did the president do? He shot at him about his son who was living as a drug addict. And that was a moment, I'm told, that Joe Biden didn't prepare for. He was trying to pivot away from the talk about his family. But in that moment, he turned to the camera and said, you know what, my son did have drug issues, like many of you out there. And that wasn't something, and we talked about this when we were watching, that he talks about very much. And that was a moment where Joe Biden was able to shine as the president was incredibly low, much lower than even his people.
Well, look,
thought he
there are
did.
political attacks, and then there are things that completely lack decency. And I think in that moment, it was obvious the president was trying to shoehorn a political attack against one son, while Biden was talking about another son who served in the military terribly and died. And I think that comes across. I mean,